make sure that's up and working too. See, I told you I'm messing things up this morning. Got brain fog. I guess technically I was up a hair later than usual last night, but didn't do anything crazy. Video side is functioning. Yay. And put a little note in there for the YouTube side. Excuse me. So I'm trying to remember now. You at the apartment for the day, or are you setting up to go back to the Hard Rock?
I have arrived at the Hard Rock and I'm
Nice.
just kicking it.
Hell yeah.
Kicking it after eating.
Nice. Reset the phone after bringing the purple pill on.
So we'll get that burst of music.
I think that might be what's throwing me off too, is normally that gives me some time to get everything prepped. But it's all good. Nothing wrong with getting the conversation started sooner than later. Usually I'm just playing the music because, it takes a bit for folks to roll in. Let's see. Got a couple of things on the agenda today after the broadcast. Ooh, almost had my coffee out of reach. Oh my goodness. Yeah, it was an interesting space yesterday. I think you caught the feisty part.
True, I did.
Yeah, I'm very talented at making enemies. It's in my skill set.
Did you Did you come across paths later in the day on space?
Oh, I was in a space where there were attempts to antagonize me, but I'm better than that. I don't play
I
the.
figured if you were hanging out around, that would happen.
Oh, for sure, Par. I mean, um, I could say that I was being publicly rage baited, but one could also say that I antagonized that to make someone display their true colors just by my presence. Look at the power of my presence, Par. I read a great book called Verbal Judo. I highly recommend that. How to use your power effectively in communications, and when silence can be the more powerful way to communicate. That was not.
Yeah, I'm good at being silent because that's just easy, just not to say anything.
Yeah, you know, let the other people burn up their fire of rage. It's all good. People love trying to attack me with zero facts. I think it's great. By all means, display your unsubstantiated speculations. Put your feelings out there.
Yeah, me, I don't get attacked, luckily, just because I'm not from this community. I'm from a different world. And I'm famous in the world, so already I don't need clout. I don't need fucking, I'm not clout chasing or any other shit. I don't need status. I already have who I am.
Yeah, you're like Switzerland in this community.
That I want to see, though. So that's why I'm around.
When do you think you're planning your next trip out of state somewhere?
Maybe if it's gonna stay getting cold here, I might go to Asia, get
Ooh,
somewhere tropical.
nice. Oh, I'm super jealous.
I have girlfriends in the Philippines that want to see me, so I could always go back there.
Oh, that's a plus.
Yeah, plus I bring them out drinking.
Hmm. I enjoyed the Philippines, except for the food was not that good, unfortunately, and I'm a big foodie.
Right, I hear you. You just have to know where. But there are some chains. Like honestly, McDonald's there was really good. It was like 1980s McDonald's.
Oh, that's
Um,
funny.
it's actually like back when McDonald's was fucking good.
Have you tried
Um,
Jollibee?
yeah, I've had Jollibee.
Oh, that
In fact,
place is
there's
wild.
one in Brooklyn.
Get out of here.
Honestly, no, there is one in Brooklyn.
Oh, they Jollibee in Brooklyn. That's funny.
Yeah, like give me the Jollibee drumstick and spaghetti.
Oh, I think that's the place that puts the hot dogs in the spaghetti, I think.
Yeah, they do.
That's wild. Wrong screen.
Did you ever go to Mushroom Burger?
No, never heard of that one. That's in the Philippines?
Yeah, it's a hole in the wall on the side of the road, in near major cities, but in the village.
Uh-huh.
And they grow mushrooms and they make burgers and sell them out of them.
Oh, geez.
Yeah,
I had the worst burger in my life at a place in the Philippines. It was heinous. I was
yeah. I
eating a
don't think.
lot of pancit bihon and pancit canton when I was in the Philippines because it was like the two dishes that I was like, all right, these
Yeah,
are
I
good.
like pancit
Yeah, that's good stuff. It's kind of like lo
noodles.
mein.
And yeah, some
Ugh.
places do an okay spaghetti bolognese. Like if you're in a mall
Mm-hmm.
with a sit-down restaurant, a lot of them have okay spaghetti bolognese, but nothing to write home about.
Yeah, I'm kind of a snob when it comes to Italian food because I was just like fortunate to be raised in a community that A, had stellar Italian restaurants and pizzerias, and then even just like the regular folks, old Italian grandmas in their kitchens and my customers and stuff just made phenomenal food. So I was very fortunate.
That's a New York thing, right? So
Yeah, I'm a total pizza snob. I ain't gonna lie. Like same thing with bagels. I look down my nose with great disdain at what most people call pizza or bagels. I won't lie. I pull no punches.
It's Atlantic City down here. We've got, they're usually catered, people come down with money. So, like, you can get a bagel with good lox and cream cheese or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
capers.
Mm-hmm.
That's available here too.
Oh, I do love that. Yeah.
Because the folks with money come down and play, so they gotta make them happy.
I like a good egg everything bagel. Get that with some cream cheese, some lox, capers, sliced red onion is good on there too.
Right? Yeah. Usually sliced red onion. So we do have some bare minimum food levels here because of them wanting to keep people happy.
Say that again. Bare minimum food levels. I didn't follow that.
Yeah, we do have some bare minimum food levels for good food here because they need to keep people happy and coming back.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, I see what you mean now. Oh, sorry, I got someone texting me for stuff that's going on later today. As as I mentioned, I actually have things going on today. Go figure.
Yeah, it's snowing out here. Got the wintry mix.
Yeah, I imagine we got some snow coming soon. It's in that window. If it gets too cold here, it doesn't snow.
Yeah, now it looks like sleet until 9 p.m. tonight.
Oh, that'll be for some treacherous roads.
Yeah, I'm not going out. That's why, I got up at 5 a.m. just so I could get here and miss the start of the sleet and nasty. So I got here and I hung out here for like a couple hours waiting to check in and get my room.
Mm-hmm.
But that I'm willing to do that because it's the beginning of my week, and now I'm just out and I'm out the rest of my week.
Excellent. Yeah, I guess technically from where you're at, I mean, spring's not that far around the corner. I imagine it starts to
Yeah,
warm up the
and
tail
it's
end of
actually
February.
and the temperature has been pretty good and will come back being pretty good very soon.
Yeah, we we,
It's just these little polar vortex bullshits that got to stop and will return to normal.
we're in like midwinter now. It'll start getting sunnier rapidly to light up the snow, but it'll be around for a while still. I remember going camping one year, and it was in June, and my friend and I went out to a spot that we normally go to, and there's typically a lake there that we can draw water off from, to run through the filter and drink and stuff like that. But when we showed up, it was still frozen. It's like, son of a bitch.
You didn't bother melting it because if you could melt it and it would be
Oh,
very
absolutely.
clean.
Yeah, yeah,
It'd be
absolutely.
clean.
Yeah, we went through the motions, but it was just more motions than just, taking the liquid and filtering it. So, yeah, first we had to, you know, get it into liquid form instead of chewing our water.
That is extra purifying of it.
Yeah, fortunately, there's plenty of water around this state for if you're hiking and stuff like that. You be very challenged to be somewhere and not be able to get some source of water that you can boil or filter.
Guess Gene's here. He may not be able to talk though. I don't know. I would have thought he'd request speaker soon.
I'm showing him the speaker on my end. He did request, I did approve, and he certainly is not a man that is short on words.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning. I'm here. I was just actually throwing some clothes on as you gents were talking. So, good morning to both of you.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
Eric, I was intrigued by the name of this morning's space. So, I'm hoping we'll get into
Oh.
tactics on removing your enemy's soul thread by thread.
Isn't that the fun part, Gene? Defeating your enemy. First, you have to know thy enemy in order to defeat thy enemy. These are steps, but they're important ones.
They are. This is intriguing.
Yeah, I am glad you joined in for this topic because I'm sure this is in your repertoire of experience. I mean, imagine, Gene, in the world that you operated in, how much it would be a detriment to you and your team if you couldn't identify your enemies.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you gotta, and I think it also goes hand in hand with know thyself.
Yes.
Because you have to know what your weaknesses and vulnerabilities are as well in order to make sure what you're doing going forward does not jeopardize your goal.
Yeah, like to me, this is like the Sun Tzu art of war stuff, right? It's all about, how do you present? What can then be attacked by what you're presenting? You have to know thyself first to be able to now misrepresent, right? This would be intelligence, counterintelligence, all under this umbrella. And then there are tactics for individuals, there are team tactics, and as I'm sure you're aware, all of these tactics can be very observable, especially when there's newbies in the mix that aren't familiar with ancient tactics that they're wielding that are new to them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's what I try to explain to people sometimes, in the world of politics, that, people don't understand. There's probably an entire floor somewhere at Langley of people who do nothing but study Putin.
Mm-hmm.
And they are able to tell you, oh, it's 40 degrees today, and there's cloud cover. Is going to have oatmeal for breakfast, and he doesn't even know he's going to have oatmeal for breakfast yet.
I totally get that. Yeah. I remember reading a great book called The Negotiating Game. I believe it was by David Carras. And I thought it was so cool reading the book because he like gets into like almost like what you would call like the weaponry of conversation, like conversational power plays, and it's like, intel, counter intel, somebody says this is such and such tactic, and what they're doing is this. And then what you need to do is use this type of part of speech to respond, and this will take the wind out of their sails, and this is called this, and I was reading this, and it blew my mind, Gene, because there was so much stuff in there that they were defining that I actively wielded. And it was mind numbing to see it like defined, where I was like, oh my God. I use this technique. I use this technique. I'm using this one correctly. I'm using this one inappropriately. So it was super interesting to just become more educated on myself that I wasn't even aware of what I was doing, so similar to, not realizing that I might eat oatmeal every morning when it's, between 63 and 67 degrees outside.
Yeah, I've been my own little experiment at home over the last, I guess, 7 going on 8 years now, is with my wife. That as she got into, so she does, aside from the singing, she does contract IT work,
Mm-hmm.
and so she works for some major global companies, and does contract work for them, and so she's in that weird place where she doesn't have to intimately get involved in office or corporate politics. But as things would happen, and the longer she's with them, she would talk about what's going on, and I'm like, oh, this is what's happening, this is the dynamic, and blah blah blah. And as she began to understand and take it on more, I've watched her sort of become super influential within, her groups. And I'm like, just drop this. One of the first ones, I said, just say nope. Somebody says, can you go? Nope. I said, and stop. Don't, I'd love to, but don't, go on. Just saying no and stopping will throw people off like you wouldn't believe.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I often say the most powerful word that we can wield is no.
Yeah.
Just gonna let you know I gave you another bump in your revenue.
Oh, thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
Yeah, so you will see that. I guess whenever, I don't know how long. Is it a full week it takes or something?
I
It's like
think the way that the app
$45.
works is I think it distributes at the end of the week for whatever happened in the week. I
Yeah,
may or may not get a notification that like
I
something
did
dropped.
45 this time just because last time it worked me back 35. So
I'm having trouble hearing you, Paul. Your mic's getting
I
all
have
wonky.
more extra change from like the 10,000 I won, so I have extra change. So I bumped it up to 45 this time
Thank you, sir.
because I know 35 was good last time. So
It all helps, sir.
yeah, maybe get you a bottle of something,
There you go.
and then just come on Spaces and act fucking crazy. Fuck these people. Who gives a fuck what they think?
It's actually funny. I'm getting low on coffee, Par, so this is going to go towards coffee for Cawffee Talk. It's a beautiful thing. Must have coffee for Cawffee Talk. I had such a debacle the other day because I was out of coffee. I was down to one coffee filter, so I'm like, let me run out, grab some coffee filters. I mean, we gotta have that. And I went to the store, grabbed a fistful of items while I was there, looking for bargains, things on special. And I get to the fucking register, and the fucking register system went out. So there was pandemonium because nobody could purchase anything. And then all of a sudden, some lady, after, I shouldn't say all of a sudden, after a while, a lady came by and said that there was one register in the back that they were functioning for cash transactions only. And I was like, yes! So I went over there because I pay in cash anyhow. And then it made me laugh seeing how few people could negotiate a cash transaction anymore. It's like, wow, that sucks. To me, it's a New York thing. I wonder if it's the same for Gene. Like, you don't go anywhere without some cash in your pocket. Like, what the fuck's the matter with you?
Like literally, it's down here. It's Empire, Boardwalk Empire. Like if you watch that show, everyone's cash everywhere all the time. But they had $10,000 bills in cash back then.
I've never seen a $10,000 bill. That one's news to me. Gene must have all of them.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, in his intelligence training, I'm sure they're like, here, bring this briefcase.
So I'll tell you. So yeah, those 10,000. I think at one point there were $100,000 bills, and those were mainly used between banks. when we still had, the gold and silver standard. But yeah, one of the more interesting, Hurricane Katrina 2005, I was based in Houston, and, Shell's business operations going on in Louisiana, obviously highly affected, but it became a cash only economy overnight. And my partner and I ended up having to drive about $500,000 in cash out to Louisiana, because even the armored cars, they're like, we'll go as far as we'll take it as far as the border, but we're not going into New Orleans. There's too much going on, so me and my buddy did it.
Nice.
So we just gotta travel back in time and then get on that road and hijack you, get that $500,000.
That's my plan. I'm polishing the wheels on the DeLorean right now.
Fucking A.
I got my Mr. Fusion device all ready to go. But in regards to our topic today, know your enemy. I had some questions that were in my head earlier, but as I mentioned to Par before you got in here, Gene, I admittedly feel like I'm dragging ass today, so I'm a little fuzzy. I stayed up a hair later than usual last night, but it wasn't pandemonium, but it just goes to show I'm typically, early to bed, early to rise. Well, I didn't get to bed so early last night, but I still am like clockwork. I'm up at 4 in the morning, so it just is what it is. I will survive. That's why God gave us coffee.
Yeah, I tried. I think I went down around 10 p.m., which is a little bit early because I'll take a late afternoon nap. But even with that, I was still tired. So around 10, but I was up at 5, and sat outside, had a cigar and some coffee until about 7, and then went back to bed for 3 hours.
There you go. I think back to the topic again. I feel like in these social circles, right? Even saying things like your enemy gets people mad at you because they're like, oh, why can't we just get along? Like, as if calling someone your enemy is an inherently bad thing. Negative. You're being negative. You're being mean. And to me, I don't see it that way. I just think of it like, I'm a man on a mission. I'm championing a cause. There are people that support me in that endeavor, and there are people that are actively working against me, of which I am very happy to call them my enemy. I don't know why I would look at it any differently. If I don't properly title things, I don't believe I will properly function as a champion for the cause or the mission I'm on. If I'm too tolerant, if I'm wishy-washy about who's who, I would say that would be a detriment to myself and the endeavor.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And you make, the litmus test is, are they trying to stop, deter, or, discredit the work that I'm doing? And there's, again, there's active support, there's passive support, there's, people who aren't, but when they are trying to stop you, or manipulate you, then they're your enemy if they're not adding value in some way. And it doesn't mean they need to agree with everything.
Right.
But maybe they say, have you considered this? Have they considered that? They're helping you through the process that you were going through. But when it comes just down to, their attacks or disparaging comments and all that, then they're definitely an enemy.
Yeah. And it's certainly observable activities that happen in my proximity that are undeniably less than supportive. You know, even if I want to, you know, give someone a hard pass as to, you know, I can't I can't prove that they're my enemy. I can't prove the motives of their actions. Well, it's observable that their activities are a detriment to what I'm trying to do. So to me, that also just simply speaks volumes. Undermining, you know, character assassination, discounting, unsubstantiated speculations, demanding proof from me but having none of their own. That's a common one. You have no proof. You're a liar. And it's like, well, I do have proof. And if you want to call me a liar, you should probably have some yourself.
What are your thoughts on the hijacking of your narrative?
Do you find it infuriating that a publicly elected official would say, "Oh, I'd love to talk to that guy," like on video, and then doesn't want to talk to you? Thank you.
That bothers me less than the reality that when she ghosted me, I was also removed from a perfectly good employment situation in a very peculiar fashion. So, yes, I correlate the one thing to the other because the timing is, to me, way more than coincidental.
Dude, that's brutal. I know you had mentioned that before, but I had no idea that it was tied
Directly.
to this.
Directly. When I was
Good God.
when that video occurred with Clayton reached out to me and was like, "Hey, I had Nancy Mace on. She's interested in chatting. Would you be cool with me passing your info on?" I said, "Absolutely," right? Boldly moving forwards, myself in good faith and in good intention, hoping to move the ball. Her office contacted me. There's a few emails back and forth in an exchange. And then I immediately found myself unemployed and ghosted from her office. What am I supposed to think? What am I supposed to think when that happens?
Dude, I have friends that I talk to that like are very smart, and when some of the things that I want to say, you know, I sound like a maniac, and then like if I were to tell them the story that you're telling me, they would tell me that I'm out of my mind. And so it's like it sucks all around. That's awful, dude. I'm sorry to hear that.
Understood, but I mean, even with that being said, Mooks, like in your position and their differing opinion, would their differing opinion change your mind of your experience? Absolutely not. Yeah.
No, but I just, you know what I'm saying? I mean, like the world is that way. Like you bring up a topic. If it's directed energy weapons, I mean, where are you going to find somebody that can actually carry on a conversation, legitimately hear out? Like, it's like, you know, by the time you even try to explain what it all means, people are tuned out. They don't want it.
Yeah, it's cognitive dissonance.
I know. What do you do about that? You just wait? You just wait.
Keep plugging away and fighting the uphill battle. I mean, certainly not going to quit.
I told you so 10 years from now.
Yeah, I'm already doing that. Six years after going public on the topic of directed energy weapons, it's now come to light for most of the community to discuss now that this Venezuelan incursion happened. So, yeah,
How come nobody wants to talk about COVID at all anymore? You never hear anybody even fucking mention it. I mean, it's like, oh, we just...
Because people don't like to admit when they made a mistake, and most people wore a mask and got vaxxed because they were dumbasses.
Dude, you're looking at one, and I'm not smart, and I'm not telling you that I am. Like, I had to get a shot for if I wanted to keep my job.
I was told I had to wear a mask simply to keep my job. And you know what I told them, Mooks?
Dude, you're smarter than me.
Understood, but
What
this
you,
is...
what you tell them? What you
I
tell
told
them?
them to go fuck themselves. They can't make me wear a mask. Now, granted, I got fired illegally. But what
My new take on it is like, this shit can't really hurt me. And if Bill Gates put a microchip into me, then like, enjoy.
Yeah, well, they did, and they will.
They did. You think they put a chip in us?
They gave you something you didn't want for sure.
What is it?
I don't know.
I don't feel it.
That's all right. Doesn't mean you didn't get bamboozled.
I probably had something earlier from before, so who cares? Whatever. Let him watch.
But we got Wolf here with his hand up, and we had Gene that did have a question right before Mooks had spoken, but we'll just let Wolf go ahead, and then we'll get back to Gene.
Good morning. I'd just like to offer a personal observation about framing people's empathy and their choices made under duress in moments of critical weakness and extreme social pressure, such that we don't truly, or we don't carry on. And I'm not slandering anyone, but calling them stupid or feeling morally superior to them, that framing will be used against us. And it's how we maintain our empathy in considering those people who we need as allies if we're to create a much healthier world. It's in our own interest to offer them charity and to kind of look over those moments of weakness, so long as we can sense in them a personal self-contrition and some much more tangible authenticity from them, rather than just a blanket dismissal of them.
Fair enough. I can smell what you're cooking, and I'm not opposed to it, but I'm just conflicted in my own head because part of me does feel like there should be some aspect of almost like, rubbing the puppy's nose where he peed in the carpet type thing. Like I'm a little conflicted
I
there,
agree.
but I follow you.
I agree, but that should be done with people who we have actually forged bonds of either friendship or personal intimacy with. Not necessarily.
I can follow
don't mean
that.
sexual. That's all I'm saying, because those standards we use, like we are not the same, that's used against us all the time to justify all manner of atrocity. And if we invest in that, it's going to continue yielding.
I can follow that.
Starve it.
There's got to be a more appropriate way of applying tact and decorum in the conversation, and I would just say I admittedly probably lack that for this topic currently. But I do want to get back to Gene had a question before, and then we have someone here, Loki, with their hand up. So just stand by, Loki. Gene, you had framed a question before, something to the effect of how do I feel about, I think you said my information being shanghaied or something like that?
Yeah, the hijacking of the narrative. So as you've talked about, the people who share your point of view, but then have steamrolled through in order to for them to own it and not kind of give you your due credit.
Got you. First and foremost, I don't take it as a personal issue. Like, my ego is aside from it. I just see it as problematic to the mission, so to say, to the truth. So, as an example, that Nancy Mace video that I think I have up in the nest, where she was on Redacted, and she's stating that she heard rumors about activities in Antarctica, and then she also goes so far as to give statements about what David Grush told her is going on in Antarctica. And this is what I've been trying to tell folks, is that these bad actors are running around gathering information from the real whistleblowers, and then they're repackaging it and presenting
Grush
it.
is the
I'm talking, Mooks.
Grush is the best guy they got. Sorry.
So they repackaged this stuff and put bad actors in front of other bad actors, and then we, the people, are suffering because it's all stagecraft. I know this because I'm deep in it. I'm trying to share this with the public that these are my direct firsthand experiences. I'm aware of the net. I'm aware of other whistleblowers that this happened to. And this video is, I mean, there's no debate when they're talking about the topic of Antarctica, whistleblowers, who they're going to reach out to, that's me. There is no other Antarctica whistleblower, right? Even though Clayton, in his intelligence, when he said to her live, he pluralized the term Antarctica whistleblowers, and that was theoretically just a way to cover, to not out me at that moment without first having spoken to me about passing my information on, so that theoretically there's multiples. But in reality, the facts of the matter are there's only one Antarctica whistleblower that's not compromising with anyone. So what we're witnessing is, like you said, it's the shanghaiing of my information and repackaging it. Heaven forbid these people are put into a conversation with the actual whistleblowers. They're trying to filter all of this stuff for the express purpose of narrative control and perception management. I mean, this is standard intel, counter intel stuff going on. We're watching it. I'm doing the best that I can to display to the public the shenanigans of the disclosure circus, to shine a light on the cockroaches that are engaged in what, to me, are obvious tactics being applied. But we do have, I hope that answered your question, Gene, but did you have anything in response?
Nope, thanks.
No, you got it. I'm going to go with this Loki person that's got their hand up. Go ahead.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I hope everyone's having a wonderful weekend. It's a little snowy here in the Northeast, so I'm all snuggled up in bed, just listening to you guys. And I'm friends with Mooks, and I really, agree with what he said about COVID, and I disagree with Wolf. I don't think there could be a reconciliation between the individuals, the useful idiots, that were caught up in the mass formation psychosis, and normal individuals. So I don't think that we should be letting them down easy. I think we should be rubbing their noses in it. I think we're in the midst of a Marxist invasion and revolution here in this country, and we need to push back on it. And I'm super excited for what's going on with the president right now. I'm super excited for ICE to come in and get everybody who doesn't belong here out of the country. And and what I'm actually more excited for is the advent of more 3D printed weapons technology. So I want to have everybody have the ability to print firearms right from their home, without being disturbed by any type of agencies. And I think that we need to push for laws that allow that to happen, because an armed society is a polite society. And I actually also think felons, after they finish serving their term, should be able to possess firearms as well. That narcotics should be legalized, and that abortion should be on demand, specifically for radical liberal white women. I want them all to coalesce around one city. I want to flood that zone with radical Islamicists, as well as other adherents to the BLM nonsense that we saw during the summer of 2020. And I'm excited for a bright future. I think things are looking up. I don't know. The GDP is through the roof. We're beating China. And people are getting kicked out of here who don't belong here, who are eating and sucking off the public dole, and have been for years. And I would actually go further, and I would denaturalize these individuals, not just deport. I would denaturalize and strip citizenship from individuals who came here and have done nothing productive except suck off the public teat. And I love it, and I love you all, and I'm excited for some discourse on this, because I know I probably ruffled a lot of feathers with this one, huh? But yeah, I'm here for it. So thanks, Eric. I appreciate the microphone.
Well, yeah, wasn't what I was expecting to be said. It seemed like you were intentionally trying to ruffle feathers with as many incendiary statements as you could. I would refer to that as being a provocateur. But
that's me.
Well, that's annoying as all get out. But back to the topic at hand. Know your enemy. Wolf, you had your hand up.
You know, it's a good thing.
Mooks had his hand up first.
Oh, I apologize.
Was that-
We'll
was
let
that a
Mooks
question,
go
Eric?
then. No, it was not a question.
I was going to say it's a good thing that you got Grush, because you could have gotten Elizondo, and Grush is the big guns, right? Like he's still got like his, you know, public facing credibility is much more intact than like, you know, Lou Elizondo getting exposed with his like crew that he does stuff with now. And I just have to say, look, it's taken me a while, and now I understand how it works. Having known and spoken with you, and now what you're explaining with Grush, like, okay, that's what I thought it was. Like, people coming in to muddy the waters, getting involved, like calling it multiple whistleblower. I get it now. It's hard to tell other people this all and make it sound not crazy when you're telling someone. When you want to tell a friend, if I want to tell a friend, I don't know how to get there in not so many words. I'm like, this is the guy you listen. But anyway, like,
Yeah,
I think it's funny you got Grush.
What does Grush know about what's going on in Antarctica? Why is Nancy Mace talking to David Grush about what the contractors are doing in Antarctica?
I mean, it's the same reason that Eric W. Davis, who's like a quantum physicist, is talking about lizard people in front of Congress. It's just to destroy, you know, like build and destroy whatever they want to. They send in a guy who does, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, when was David Grush in Antarctica? When did David Grush go into two separate skiffs to discuss what he learned with direct first-hand experience in Antarctica? So these things never happened.
Tall.
You know, so why does he get the ear of Nancy Mace?
He's very tall. He's very tall.
Yeah, I'm tall too. With
I think,
experience and documentation.
He's like 6'8". I think he's like 6'8".
Interesting. But we got Wolf with his hand up. Fire away, Wolf.
I'd like to bounce off of what Mooks expressed regarding COVID and news cycles. That is happening increasingly across all media spaces with most topics. And the genuine domestic matters of top-down predation by the vested political interests in our society are much more pressing than openly advocating for abrogating the Constitution with literally nonsensical, internally self-contradicting utterances, which is clearly what it just happened. So I would encourage folks not to feed the troll, and if he speaks, simply ignore him. Allow your silence to be the answer that is more powerful than anything you could actually say. You know how I mentioned not investing in that thing so it stops yielding?
Yep.
Same situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, the news cycle churn, Mooks, is a genuine phenomenon, and it serves only one vested set of interests, that of established power, and it is meant to demoralize, and it is meant to suggest that you are doing your duty by keeping up with the latest news cycle and letting go of what happened before, which needs much more thorough and long-term sustained interrogation, which is being thwarted with this churn. And it was an excellent point you brought up, and I think more people should consider that in or on a daily basis, actually, given that a news cycle seems to go almost daily now.
And it's working. What did you say? I feel demoralized. What was the other? Yeah, it's working.
Yeah, it's like a laser pointer for a cat. Even my cats figure it out eventually, and you know it's got to be a few weeks before I bring it out again. Here, we're giving, you know, we're being shown a new disco ball or laser pointer day after day, and then we're being chastised for wanting to continue talking about important subjects like human trafficking and a porous southern border, and essentially, you know, brazen and open insider trading regarding stock trades and other financial investments in what are supposed to be open and free markets that instead serve crony capitalism, which is essentially, and in terms of textbook definitions, an expression of fascism, if you consider fascism in the Italian sense of a merger of corporate and state power. and the one becomes the other, and they're almost indistinguishable now. It is parasitism.
I think there's a lot to be said for the wielding of the weapon of demoralization too. It's just a known thing, and I see that in our society all over the place, that you know, we the people are suffering under the intentions of those that wish to demoralize us.
The enemy is inside the house, and they have basically climbed into daddy's chair and mommy's chair at the table. Right? And a lot of people think in those terms still. They just don't realize it.
Gene, would the tactics that you worked with back in the day incorporate demoralization also, or was that not necessarily something that you guys had in your toolkit?
Yeah, that wasn't. It generally wasn't anything applicable that came in. I think of that as more larger scale military operations.
Gotcha. Yeah.
You know, that's when you go in and start again making people feel bad about the thing that's going on, so that they rise up or they give up.
Fair enough. Yeah, it's like I'm sure you're probably familiar with it as a tool in the toolkit, but yeah, I gather it wasn't something that you guys would wield. Not so functional for what you guys were involved with.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, this stuff, you know, I mean, in regards to the topic, like the know your enemy stuff, I think for the most part, what we're teetering in the realm of modern day psyops, I guess, is how do we identify those folks that are psyoping us, that would be the enemy for we the people right now, and to look at techniques and tactics. And I do believe that, you know, on a societal level, they are applying, you know, demoralization stuff, trauma inducement. You know, everything that we see on the news, we all know is bad news, bad news, bad news. You know, they'll put on, you know, God only knows how many stories they'll put on a year about guns are bad, dangerous guns. This guy shot this person, bad, 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 bad. Guns are bad. But nobody discusses the copious amounts of stories that happen every year, where a good guy with the gun saves someone's life. As if that doesn't happen. You know, so that's the power of the edit. And, you know, choosing to put the, you know, more trauma-inducing stories, the demoralizing, pejorative stuff. I remember, so now that it makes me think about it, I should go look for it. I remember before my original Facebook page got wiped out, I used to follow a page called Guns Save Lives. And the only thing they posted were stories of good people with guns saving someone else's life. And it was really cool to peruse that page. Because there are good people out there. And guns in the hands of good people cause good things. It looks to me like you got your hand up, Mooks. Fire away if you do.
No, I don't actually, but you know, I'm sorry to hear what you said about with the mace thing, and that sucks. Like, I wish I knew. I don't even know what to do if knowing what I know right now about Grush. Like, I don't know what to do about it. You know, you don't waste time attacking Grush. You don't. You know what I mean? Like, that's not gonna fix anything.
Well,
so it's like,
I don't think the word attack needs. Attack might be a bit overzealous, but pressure. Right? So when it comes to Nancy Mace, when it comes to David Grush, when it comes to Burleson, all of these people should have pressure applied to them, right? There's nothing.
Yeah, but isn't it follow the money and then apply pressure? Like who's
Let me
behind
finish.
The real?
We could simply engage them from the angle of, we want actionable intelligence. Stop feeding us shit sandwiches. That could be stated over and over. Every time they come out with junk, you press them and go, hey, thanks for the new shit sandwich that I didn't order. When are you going to get to anything that's of value? Please stop playing games with us. We would like actual answers. Like that type of stuff. Like you can have a reasonable conversation and still apply pressure without it being an attack. People could pressure Nancy Mace to fulfill her own statements from the video clip presented. Right? There could be...
I did. I told her we got her a new dress.
There you go. Yeah. Tell her to get some Antarctic gear, and we'll go meet in Antarctica, and I'll take the key that I have that still opens every door, and I'll show her whatever she needs to see. I'll give her a tour of the facility.
Maybe if we can get her some kind of stylish outfit, we can dangle that.
Oh, yeah.
Carrot.
Yeah, get her a nice brand new Canadian Goose parka with the United States Antarctic Program patch on it. National Science Foundation. I mean, politicians love that shit.
And those wraparound mirrored ski goggles with the pink tint.
Yeah. We'll get a spray bottle with some water to mist on her hair so she can get like the frozen hair shot and look all badass.
Dude, she's got somebody taking angles of photos. Like, I got an eye for this kind of shit because that's what I've done, you know. And it's just she's playing Barbie out there.
It appears she's spending more time with her camera crew and makeup crew than she is with any legitimate whistleblowers that have direct first-hand experience and actionable intelligence. Instead, she's getting the filter. The filtered information.
We can get her a custom pair of skis. Do you ever need to ski up there? No, right? Snowshoes? What's the footwear sitch?
Need for skis, no, but they do have them available for recreational use. Footwear is the warmer the better if you're going to be outside. I highly recommend the Cabela's Inferno boots. Very nice.
Do they come in high heels?
We can make them custom for her.
She's in.
Wolf's got his hand up. Fire away, Wolf.
The Nancy Mace video with the fellow from the show Redacted, if you watch that video with the sound off and pay close attention to their nonverbal communication, like blink rate, and not only the horizontal but also the vertical inclination or declination of their head, you can learn a lot about who is more authentic in terms of asking and answering questions. And I noticed that Mace very often exhibits signs of a grimace that is masked with a smile, and her head often goes to one side or the other with an orientation that indicates wheels are turning in her head so that she can answer in the most politically spin-appropriate way. So she's very performatively listening to the question, and then her eye will occasionally look down to the bottom, while you're facing the screen, to the bottom left. It would be to her bottom right on her side. So she's either paying attention to a stock trader, a stock ticker, a social media notification, or perhaps a script, or who knows what. But she's clearly only half involved with the conversation while she's trying essentially to performatively put a spin on it. It's a complete fabrication of engagement with the news host. And you can see him subconsciously reacting to this with his own body language. So I've just primed that for you. And if you watch the video again, it's not very long. Other people who are interested in this, watch the video while we're talking about a subject that makes you zone out. And confirm your own instincts about what you see without the sound on. You may be surprised.
Have you ever sent any invitations to somebody like Grush, Eric, for the Deciphering TV show? Like, I mean, I'm sure they would say no, but have you ever invited those guys? Any of the types of those guys, have you ever gotten a chance to speak to them? The types of people, like what Grush is doing?
Well, to answer the question, no, I wouldn't invite him. Um, ha- Immediately after me giving my testimony in D.C., Grush, Colthart, and Barber reached out to me to try to get me to play ball, and I basically told them to go fuck themselves, that I'm not going to play their games. Like, that already occurred years ago.
Dude, that's important part of this story that I'm just learning. So
I've been public about it. Like, this is the shit I've been saying for years. No one's fucking listening, but I appreciate it. I appreciate it's new to you, but yeah, I've been public about this. These are the games that are being played, that I've been a part of, that I've also shared publicly.
okay, I'm just saying it takes a while to piece the puzzle together when you're outside looking in. Especially when you got somebody like Lou Elizondo running, you know, doing what he's doing. Look at that's what he's done.
Yeah, he's part of the games being played.
I know, and it so it takes you know, even if you could figure out what's really going on, it takes much longer when you get that kind of person involved, right? It's effective.
Yeah, it's just like having oh, what the hell do they call that guy that directs the act? As a name for the guy at the circus that's like in charge of the ringleader. Thank you. He's like the ringleader of what John Warner calls the 1,000-ring circus of disclosure. You know, light up this ring.
You remember AFX cars, and then they had Tyco ones. There was a racing set. It was a figure eight, and it came with 3 cars. One for you, one for your brother or your friend, and then there was another car. It was called the Jam car, and it would just switch lanes on its own, like occasionally, and like just be in the way and fucking people up. And that's like what they do. They just get in the fucking way and say things, and it throws people way off. You know, they're loud about it. They go on media tours and write books.
Yeah, I mean,
it's nuts.
Yeah, that seems to be the agenda, is to make celebrities out of folks to get the audience to focus their attention on them.
Well, to the average person, they see like, oh, the UFO news coming out, and then they're watching Lou Elizondo tell them whatever the fuck is coming out of his mouth at any given moment, and that's all they listen to. They don't even get to the real stuff for the most part, right? If the numbers, I mean, probably, right? Numbers probably check out with regards to like the number of people who have seen and heard stuff he's distributing, as opposed to what you're saying, even, or anyone else who's saying something that real the true attention. They're effective, very effective.
Yeah, the tactics are working really well. Oh, I see Gene. Sorry, Gene, I didn't notice that your hand was up there, but fire away.
No worries. You know, I think all that's valid. Myself, I have a much maybe different perspective on David Grush, and I agree, with and have no reason to doubt anything, of course, when you talk to Nancy Mace. But I think this is the great thing. We are now getting ready to enter midterms, and even though some people like Burleson are very secure in their district at the moment, I'm giving it a little bit more time. I'm giving a little more opportunity to engage. But if they don't, then believe me, I am going to be reaching out to the other campaigns. I'm going to be reaching out with the insights that I have about the people who are influencing the people in office on a lot of these issues. And will it get somewhere? Well, perhaps not. Again, my background, I've played this game a lot, so this is knowing your enemy. And if they want to be enemies, or they at least want to continue to ignore, this is, it's coming up on my window to influence. Perhaps you should have engaged. Perhaps you shouldn't have ignored, because there are people that want that job. And those people, if those people lose the seats, then you start to see the day, then where does David Grush go? Where's his new day job? So, they can play the games, but again, there's elections that come up, and there's information that can be shared, and there's money that can be spent to, alter all, just change the landscape. That's the wonderful thing about America now.
Yeah, I mean, I've also engaged with Eric Burleson directly, and his office. He's associated to Grush, right? So the Grush is bouncing around from puppet to puppet, and filling their heads with information. And from my perspective, is he's training them up to not engage me. I catch these folks off guard. I figure out ways to, insert myself into conversations where they're not expecting it, right? Thanks to Clayton. That was one time. It worked. Another time I was in a space with, I think it was Tupacabra's space, where Burleson was in there, and I got a direct line of communication. And all of a sudden, publicly, I'm so interested, right? That's how that went down. But then privately, he was dragging his feet. I kept applying pressure publicly, to the tune of him and his staffers engaging me with a Zoom call. And then I got ghosted again. I gather Grush was probably listening in on that one, but since Grush seems to be a handler for these politicians in some capacity, I'm persona non grata. They are being taught to disengage as fast as possible, to discount and disengage. That appears to be the mission: discount and disengage.
And we are in a similar situation where the narratives have been hijacked. And again, in my case, it's specifically, I mean, I have the receipts. Once Grush got involved, then all of a sudden the landscape changed, and we're seeing it play out real time with George Knapp's sudden interest in things he brought back 30 years ago and seemed to have had no interest in sharing then, but he wants to share now.
Was that before or after that Burleson went down and snorted Boogosphere dust with Greer?
I think it was before.
Why? And like when I saw that guy show up at that Boogosphere thing, I was like, "This is all wrong. What are they doing?" That one seemed like, they went to look at the Nazca mummies that are all dusty. There was like dust all over the place, like him and Greer down in Peru with the Boogosphere. Burleson. Yeah, go ahead, Wolf.
I just wanted to. I don't want to change the topic too grossly, so if we're going to stick on the Boogosphere for a bit, let's do that. I just want to talk about that fellow Loki who came in when we reach.
Oh, by all means, engage. I didn't think that person was operating in a good intent myself.
Just like a NASCAR has all kinds of stickers all over it where you can identify where the money comes from or what the main goal of the car is, right? Advertising with the distraction of racing and over expensive snacks being sold. That person could, I think, fairly be considered to be a Discordian, whether or not they're truly a worshiper of Eris or if they're just a self-chortling, self-congratulatory troll of sorts. They're replete, that's a new word for the day, replete, R-E-P-E-L-E-T-E, I'm sorry, R-E-P-L-E-T-E, is replete with signs that indicate he is involved in perception warfare, and I've provided some for that. Now, is it conclusive? Absolutely not. Is it informed? Definitely. And I would encourage each of you to take in the information on your own and think about what he uttered, and especially the contradictions he uttered, and the open mockery he with what was obviously mockery and belittlement.
No, I mean that's what he does. Like I've heard him enough. Hosted a gazillion spaces like where he would participate, and he's just yeah. I'm not going to disagree with anything you said, but you know, at times he's very funny too. So but yeah, it is, you know, you got it.
Yep.
Yeah. The circus is full of clowns.
And you continue to associate with him, and essentially, kind of.
I mean, I'm just here in Eric's space. I'm not defending anything. I'm just my own person.
Okay.
I'm not gonna do anything like that. I'm here to learn. I have learned stuff. I learned something today, and I'm not joking around at all. I support Eric. And yeah, I do what I can to learn more about this stuff, because I feel like, you know, looking back on my life, like I've been misinformed about a just an overwhelming amount of things, and it's disappointing and it's maddening, and there's not much you can do about it, but you can try to learn. And no, I wouldn't do anything like that, like what he did. But you know, I'm not going to lose my mind over it either, because there's so many people on the internet. What can you do? The behavior is, you know, it is what it is.
I just want to say that I actually knew Wolf's word of the day today already. I was familiar with the term replete. I'm very proud of myself right now.
I knew it too. I almost corrected his spelling, but I'm interrupting too often.
It does look to me like Gene's got his hand up, so fire away, Gene.
No, go stand.
Wait, but what was it? You know, Gene, I think, had mentioned, I think it was Gene who said, like, with his experience, like, I'm not familiar with what that is. Do you mind sharing a bit?
No, Eric, that good with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Is Nat making breakfast? Is it a little overdone?
Yeah, it seems that it is, yeah.
As a maintenance guy, I'm very familiar to being triggered by fire alarms. That's always bad.
Yeah. Let me move to the other side of the yard. Yeah, so what happened was, as I was circulating my father-in-law's materials, I had
Did we lose Gene?
Yeah, I think he rugged completely. I thought I lost my connection.
Yeah, I think he might have got a technical difficulty, or somebody engaged him because of the fire alarm, potentially.
What are your thoughts, Eric, on the upcoming summer, sure to be blockbuster? What's his name again? The guy, the movie that's coming out, the disclosure thing with the bird.
Oh, it'll be a propaganda piece.
What's his connection to, like, he's been around, Spielberg, he's been around forever, right? He's been Close Encounters. I mean, I liked that film. I went back and watched parts of it again. I kind of, I don't know, I guess I understood some new, like, space concept of soldiers returning home. what's your take on like what's his deal? He's what's his connection to have that info?
I have no idea.
Are you talking about Spielberg?
I am.
To have that info?
Yeah.
Did you ever hear any of the rumors about his potential involvement? And again, this is pure rumor. I'm not making an allegation in case lawyers eventually hear this. But there are some folks who speculate that he may have been involved in some of the darker aspects of child involvement in Hollywood. I'll leave it at grossly plain like that. There's lots of talk about that on the internet if you know how to look for it. On the open web, I'm not talking about the dark web. And given what we know about the penetration of power and predation in Hollywood, it wouldn't surprise me if it were true, but I don't know if it's true.
Okay, but like, what about the UFO film? What you got any thoughts on that? Like, what sort of function and like, yeah, where's the info coming from?
Well, the info is almost certainly coming from the state itself, and possibly through an intermediary like Jacques Vallée, who helped him in his first film. And Vallée is tied directly into the kind of perception management layer, and also the fringe and cutting edge layer of exploration into overlaps between consciousness and what appears to be non-human phenomena. Natural phenomena, areas of nature we don't fully understand yet, but I myself would reject any touch of the supernatural onto any of this, anything mythopoetic in that sense. That is exactly the vector used to nudge people's thought processes and to kind of recalibrate the default, tribal identity that you would reflexively use to defend your mind or your heart or your status, right? So in Spielberg's case, with Vallée being involved, and with the open psi war going on in the West, and the weaponization of the NHI and UAP and remote viewing and psi power topic as just a basket, a cornucopia of ideas, it's very clearly perception management and public framing of the interrelated basket of matters, right, relating to paranormal, the plausibility of paranormal phenomena, and farmed underneath that, as with Top Gun and other major, movies in Hollywood that have military advisors, a little bit of a tickling into trust the government, trust the authorities. They're telling you what they can, trust the plan. There are many layers to that cake.
Great answer. Yeah, so then, following that logic, like Spielberg must have just like unlimited access to what's really at the core of everything then, right?
No, absolutely not.
Not at all.
He's an asset. Assets are compartmentalized, so he is part of a system of managing this topic.
I saw his yacht down in Fort Lauderdale one day. It's just tremendous. And it was like, I was just thinking, like, nobody needs that. I mean, like, it's outrageous. It probably costs, like, many thousands of dollars a day just to even have it parked. Outrageous wealth. And, yeah, I don't know. I wonder how much. I get what you're saying with the compartmentalization, but, like, making a film, I don't know. I feel like he would know more than the average. Like, I don't know.
I don't think so at all. I think he could literally have a movie written by someone else handed to him and be told, like, go make this movie now.
Yeah, that's a good point too.
I think of Tom Clancy that way, the supposed author, right? His book, The Hunt for Red October, he presented it as fiction, but it's not fiction. It's a true story. So I don't believe him to be an author as much as he is an asset that's designed to disseminate, and that these guys get tapped and they're basically told, like, have your name on it. You'll get to reap the profits. There's going to be some factions that are going to take a cut of that because that's, you know, how we do cutouts, and we make you money, you get us some money, and you know, as long as you're agreeable, we'll keep giving you books to slap your fucking name on.
I mean, I'll take a deal like that right now.
Let me provide
So many people could be compromised that way. Go ahead, Wolf.
a movie template for this. In a mafia circumstance, right? You've got the boss, you've got his underboss, then you have the capos, right? Then you have their soldiers, and that's the inner core of made men, right? Then you have their associates. But no matter what happens, you kick up to the next layer in the pyramid of power, right? So you're allowed to operate, and you're afforded certain protections if you operate within the rules, and if you're a good earner, as it were, i.e., if you're effective in your assigned role, right? So you can think of Spielberg or anyone else involved in this kind of endeavor, right, in an analog to any other area of life, as being involved essentially in that kind of pyramidal structure where you kick up to the people above you and they kick up to the bosses, and you are only as valuable as your utility remains, let's say, sharp, as it were. Outside of that, if you're a particularly useful asset, you'll very soon, if you're perceptive, realize the real nature of the game, and then you will be open to co-option by competitor forces. But that's a very dangerous game because in a world where loyalty is demanded but very rarely given, we know this from folks like Whitey Bulger and many of the other organized crime bosses that snitch on their lower level members, right, while demanding, you know, solid loyalty from them. We realize the dynamics here, and they're no different in an intelligence or government respect than they would be at the street level, right? The environment doesn't alter the algorithm of predation that is operating there. So in this case, Spielberg obviously is, at this point in his career, clearly and permanently tied to the power structure. So I don't think he's been co-opted. He's probably so deep into this and so protected by now that he may not even realize that he's been conditioned to jump when he hears the sound, right? He sees a movie idea, he has new trusted peers. He himself would need to be, you know, newly excited by, you know, a new cut of a hemline or a new particularly shapely backside, right? Whatever that happens to be in the context of garnering his attention, right? Alluring him into a project. At this point, you know, like Anthony Weiner, right? He may just be a fully co-opted agent, and he recognizes a bone when it's thrown, right? There are ways to codedly communicate with people like that. So imagine the things you learn from Hollywood, right, that are meant to be propaganda. Look a little bit deep. Algorithmic trading. There's a wealth of information.
I can't do it justice, but I will just go rapidly to say that in my communications with John Warner, he has expressed that the 1980s movie, I think it was The Final Countdown, which was about a time-traveling aircraft carrier, was absolutely 100% from top to bottom a Navy production propaganda piece.
I believe it. The fact that you believe it, and I have non-trivial trust for many of the things you talk about, just affirms it for me. I've heard that before, actually, a long time ago. And I know that Top Gun and other films are kind of massaged into being with, you know, military grade contacts. So that's, I guess, par for the course.
Part of my recollection of Warner sharing that story was how he attended the premiere of that movie, which was just all of the Navy top brass. And I forget who he said was sitting in front of him and his father, his father being former Secretary of the Navy. But this high-ranking person, when the movie ended, turned around, shook his father's hand, and said, "We have our new recruiting movie." Nothing like needing some folks to desire to be time traveling sailors in the 1980s. Is this thing still on? Everything just got weird on my laptop screen. So I'm not sure what the heck is going on. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you.
Oh, excellent. Cool. Everything's still functional. Fantastic. Starting to wonder what the heck is going on over at Gene's house. We heard the fire alarm going off, and then all of a sudden he disappeared. It's giving me flashbacks to being at remote facilities when you're outside doing stuff in the elements, and then all of a sudden the radio lights up from people inside the facilities, and they're screaming and yelling, and you can hear the alarms in the background. So it was interesting for me to hear that. We'll cross our fingers that Gene's kitchen isn't in high gear.
I think all will be well. He's married to a European lady and an Eastern European lady at that, so he should be okay. The fire would probably be more afraid of her than anything else.
That's a very good point. Good point. If anything, it's probably just some burnt toast, hopefully.
Have you ever had Russian blin, a style of pancake they serve? BLIN?
I have not. It makes me think of blintzes, though, which I wonder if it's an offshoot from another land.
Can you spell blintzes for me? I'm not familiar with that term.
Oh, sure. It's BLINTZES.
Okay, blintzes. I'm going to look that up. Yeah, blini
also-
or blin is
also-
kind of
A skinny pancake, kind of. Almost
Yeah,
like
yeah.
a crepe. It's like
yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Same thing.
I'll bet you these are all synonymous.
Yep. Just like pork cracklings, right? You know, smoked, charred bits of pork flesh with a bit of fat on it, right? A lot of peasant food is good food.
Is that dissimilar from pork rinds?
Pork rinds, that's like the chip-like snack you can get in the store, is all light and puffy and airy. I'm talking about essentially, imagine a 3D cube of bacon, but it's been smoked and dried and perhaps spiced with paprika or something else suitable to the home culture. I know it because I grew up with some people who were from Hungary, and they called it tepertő, which is basically a chunk of pork prepared in the way I suggested. Eat it with bread.
Oh, I can certainly imagine that, but I've definitely never had that.
It's good stuff. If there's any kind of Eastern European deli in and around your area or wherever you happen to travel next, try and drop into an Austrian or Hungarian or just Eastern European deli or something. You can get some tepertő, or Americans and Canadians, we know it as pork cracklings.
Oddly enough, there is an Eastern European deli around the corner from me.
Rock and roll. If you can get something called lecho, which is red and yellow sweet bell pepper preserve, right? Pickled, essentially. It's a nice light kind of accompaniment for heavier, greasier sausages or meaty foods, or if you happen to eat rendered goose fat, right, smeared on a nice piece of rye bread with a bit of salt on the top, right? It's nice. Goose fat or duck fat. It's tasty. You can't eat it in bulk, of course. Otherwise, you'll die quite early if you're not doing outdoor farm work.
I would try every bit of this, and the fact that it's all stuff that I've never had before makes it all the more enticing.
Yeah, the Eastern European peasants grew up having to eat and consume all the calories they could, and they learned to make everything. Just like Black Americans, post-slavery, right? That kind of soul food comes from, essentially what in the context would be the scrap ingredients, right? Lobster used to be one of those foods. Now it's a big fancy item, right? Folks now go
Yep.
to have collard greens and hominy grits and all this other, poor kind of peasant food.
I remember coming across stories of children in the New York City area many years ago, and they came across diaries of these children of lobster farmers that were like whining in their diaries, like, "Oh, our life is terrible. We're so poor." Excuse me. I'm the daughter of a lobsterman, so all we get to eat every day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, lobster, lobster, lobster.
I feel their pain not being a fan of lobster or shrimp to any appreciable degree. I'll eat it, but I wouldn't order it at a restaurant. Can't do it. It's like
Fair enough.
Racer for me.
I'm a big fan of both lobster and shrimp of every variety. Crab too. I'm pretty equal opportunity when it comes to seafood.
What do you know, Eric, about Jacques Vallée in the context of Know Your Enemy and his own relationship with or connection to Rosicrucianism? Do you know anything about that aspect of his identity?
I do not. I only know that he is somebody who's been in the conversation for a long time, and a fistful of people I know seem to have reverence for the information that he's put forward that I would say I'm only loosely familiar with. Like, I know I've come across this stuff through the years, but I would say that I'm currently failing to go into my memory banks and say, oh, I know this about Jacques Vallée. I remember he said this. Like, I know I've come across his stuff, but I couldn't put my finger on it at the moment, and I did not know of any association of him to Rosicrucianism.
This ties in, of course, to elements of Jesuit influence operations and to long established European and now North American families with multi-generational wealth to manage. And the entire idea, the reason I bring it up is because like everything, Rosicrucianism, and I'm not a Rosicrucian, I'm not sympathetic to them, I'm not deeply, I don't have a deep antipathy for them either, but they are an element of long-term generational perception management in addition to, right, they're not limited to that role, but in addition to kind of black boxed research in terms of social engineering, and then how those two elements can help them with whatever private or personal spiritual or other developments they happen to be engulfed in, right? None of these folks is operating from a unified or solitary position or set of interests. Just like you or I, they have phases in their life that see significant changes. They will have different goals based on whether or not they're in a relationship or have children. They're as complicated as you and I are, but at the civilization scale, we do see the presence of selective societies embedded in government and technology, and then in culture framing, so that ultimately the long-term ability to make reliable predictions is bolstered. And that is an element of knowing your enemy. That long sight is something most of us are not encouraged to consider as practical, and are often kind of sent off balance in terms of our daily challenges to kind of provide some disequilibrium so that we're always kind of on balance managing that area of our life. That ties in with the information disequilibrium we talked about earlier with this news churn. So the news churn is something pedestrian, meaning it's facing you and I at the street level at the same time. The perception management and generational influence operations operate at, of course, that different time scale. And as such, they're more subject to longer waves of change. And to keep that kind of signal within acceptable tolerances, there's some fine tuning that needs to go on, which is why you'll see related to Know Your Enemy and also the UFO topic, the talk about a Collins elite and then younger blood in the organizations having some tension. That could be genuine, and it also could be just an aspect of perception management. I don't know enough myself to bet on that, but one mistake we often make is that there's a uniform or a uniformity into the goals being prosecuted here, and that's rarely the case in times of change like ours. And I don't know if you would agree with me, Eric, or anyone else listening, whether or not we do seem to be in a period of hyper change, as it were, right? Things are changing so fast now with regards to technology, intergenerational relationships, long-term forecasting of economics and prosperity, and then ultimately, above all of that, nation-state interactions, right? The few sovereigns on this planet, a handful of nations, they're kind of having a spat, right? They're playing king of the hill. Are you seeing the same thing?
Absolutely. That's one of the things that I've been saying recently is that I'm observing the activity of many factions vying to be king of the hill. Totally see that. I appreciate what you're saying about the long game versus people being short-sighted, especially when it comes to like the Rosicrucians. I've said it before. The book by Jim Marrs, Rule by Secrecy, very good so that people can become aware of the activities of the players that have been involved in the long game for a long time. And also in regards to my experiences, this is one of the things that I observed being in the homes of the uber affluent. I was exposed to that they live in a different world in regard to their long-sightedness compared to my short-sightedness. I'm operating as the average mortgage payer, living month to month. It's a different world when your grandchildren's mortgage will also always be paid. These people have different conversations than we do. In a way, I guess, Wolf, you could probably wrap your brain around this, that like we've thrown the term around like breakaway civilization. I mean, I imagine we can say that it starts when you financially break away from the systems that most people are captured by. Does that make sense?
Indeed, it does. And immediately it brings to my mind Dianetics, right? With their going clear and break free. And it's kind of coded in their communications like that. They're just one more faction, right? A relatively new hat in the ring or a new brand, right? The same fizzy drink, but a new brand competing in that marketplace. And yeah, it's like a gated community, right? Breakaway civilization is a fine term for it, but it's a little, and I'm not saying this is slight you or anyone else, but it's a little arcane for average listeners, right? They can much more clearly relate to something like a private members club or a homeowners association or a gated community or simply an invisible class, right? And if we think in the West that we don't have a class system, well, this is also part of the perception management, right? Every human being exists within a class system.
And with that being said, and granted, I have said before, I operate from being very biased, typically against rich people. That's my standard operating position. I find the majority of them in those factions to be operating to the detriment of the majority of people. But even with that being said, there are exceptions to every rule that I even appreciate. So just hypothetically speaking here, woof, if I was able to cut you a check for $750 billion, if I could remove you from the shackles of the financial restraints that you and I are currently suffering under, I believe that you would be a faction now free to do better things than you can right now. I wholeheartedly believe that. I think that you would be like, oh my God, imagine what I can accomplish now for good. I believe that would occur. So I also have an understanding in the paths that I have crossed. Those people do exist also. They are part of the many factions vying to be king of the hill. That activity is also going on. I just want to clarify that.
That's true. And to spin off of that, to use your same framing, which is sound framing, consider now how much money is churned at the federal level in a country like the United States and then with its trading partners, and how much can be skimmed without being noticed, right? That alone is incentive enough to bring the, let's say, the fortune seekers, right? Those people who will accept being paid off or being compensated, right? To be recruited into a management layer that is, otherwise quiet and hidden and has built upon the resources and networks of previous generations, right? In other words, they're not just 2 or 3 steps ahead. They're actually playing with a completely different set of rules that you have not unlocked yet, right? And they're not obligated to inform you about those rules, according at least to their standards. And right now, sadly, they own the house, right? They own the casino that we're all gambling in. It can change, right? It can always change, but they don't want us to believe that. Consider then just fractions of pennies on transactions. How much wealth can be churned out of the United States?
I believe I had a friend of mine educate me on like I forget what it's called, the electronic transfer system that goes on for like global transactions constantly, like you said, pennies on each transaction. But when you're talking, billions of transactions per second, so to say, I'm exaggerating slightly, of course, I don't know the numbers, but yes, there's a lot that can be skimmed. And then what you were saying before about like getting to a different level of the game, I mean, even in a way, operating within the same rules, the rules have less of an impact, right? So if you had that $750 billion in your bank and you're driving and you got to get somewhere and you're in a rush, do you speed, or are you concerned about having to pay a speeding ticket, or do you just do what the fuck you want to do? Do you just rush? Does the impact of the law bother you if you get a ticket?
Not if you have friends in addition to money, and the friends is more important for anything major.
Right. So now technically it's an even cooler world for the rich people, right? Because back in the day, if you wanted to speed and you were rich, even if you can afford the speeding ticket, you might get pulled over, which is a detriment to your expedient activity. Now we have traffic cameras. So rich people can speed all they want without even getting pulled over. They'll just get an infraction in the mail that they can afford. Isn't it grand to be rich now that you have your $750 billion worth?
Of course, and not only that, but there could be an operating layer on that traffic issuing system, right? That ticket issuing system that ignores a certain subset of plates or names. So it's a wonderful cover.
Good point. That's a really good point. I wouldn't doubt that in the slightest.
Oh, we see you're a gold tier, platinum, premium, double plus good member. Okay, no consequences for you. Epstein.
You have highway pre-check. you've already bought in. By all means, carry on at 120 miles an hour.
Hey, You know, you just invoked a wonderful template to apply to society at large, which is the boarding system or the privileges system at an airport. That right there is a hard code algorithm for what we see in the rest of society.
Absolutely. One of the things that I learned when I came up to Alaska and I got more involved with flight operations, because there's a lot of planes in the state of Alaska that are privately owned. And it makes me think of the whole 9/11 debacle and security and TSA and all of these things. Woof, do you know what it takes to get onto the tarmac of an airport if you are a poor person? Right, you'd have to go through all kinds of levels of security. You would be in deep shit for not, going through this checkpoint, that checkpoint. They got to check your IDs, all that stuff. That's for poor people. You know how rich people can get onto the tarmac of an airport without having to go through any security?
I can guess. I don't know, but I'm informed by film and anecdote. Yeah, connection.
It's called
Wow.
no. It's just called buy a plane.
Oh, right, buy a plane.
Buy a plane. If you can afford a plane, what you do is you just pull up to the security gate that's locked for poor people, and then there's a button that you hit that they call it like squelching the gate, and then the gate just opens and you're in. So technically, if you want to be a terrorist and gain access to the super high security areas, you just need a checkbook. It's the weirdest thing.
I imagine that area would be so crawling with spooks and affiliated people already that's a hidden layer of. But yes, I take your point. A long-term game of trust and access, right? Those two things right there, trust and access. Who do you trust and why? What kind of access do they have and why?
I mean, just thinking of, again, like what I've seen in movies and stuff, it's like, well, if, I could imagine some sort of, Tom Cruise type movie, Mission Impossible. We need to get an agent onto that plane. So they charter a local air taxi company, chuck them a few bucks, they get past the gate, they go through it. As the plane is, taxiing to the runway, they just dip out the back door of the plane. They're on the tarmac. They get access to what they need to in their super secret agent capacity. And that's all great when it's in the movies and it's Tom Cruise and it's the good guys, it's so cool. But bad guys can do it too. It's a thing I've always paid attention to as a tradesman is infrastructure, how things are built. And it's just amazing to me to look at, points of entry and access, as you mentioned, as, constructed, and anything that can be constructed, has weak points, advantages that can be, or I should say, opportunities that could be taken advantage of. It's a systems thing, and there are certainly people that pay attention to these things. And even like we mentioned, the TSA and what we see when we go to an airplane, there's already different levels right there that the average person can see. But there's other systems and infrastructure that the average person doesn't see. So when you get to the more elite status, like I own a plane, it's as much as I can appreciate you saying like, well, there must be levels of security there. They are. They're certainly more lenient than the other areas of access.
Laws are constructed the same way, of course, and then access, right, to proper legal representation, essentially in a pre-gamed and tiered permission system for, quote, flexibility under the law, unquote, just as with speeding tickets. A few years ago, there was a large case. I think there was a young man or an adolescent, maybe he was 17 years old or so, and I think it was Arizona, and he committed some horrid crimes relating to, I think, violence. I think he drove drunk and he killed a few people. And he essentially got off with probation because his family was connected, or with a suspended sentence.
I don't in specifics, but I will say that I absolutely grew up with people that I would just say had family, friends that were, in police departments. And when those friends did something wrong, they benefited from copious amounts of leniency. I had a friend of mine back in the day that drove drunk into someone's home, like blew his car through the front wall, and it was in their kitchen, and he didn't get in trouble.
That makes me wonder about incidents like that that we don't hear about, that are even more egregious, that are just quietly covered up, and never even make it to any point of discovery or even official prosecution. It's a matter
Totally.
handled with favor trading.
And I would say this friend in particular, I would say had like the lowest level of influence you could think of, and still pulled off such a wonderful feat of leniency. I could only imagine what happens at upper echelon associations.
Here's something Gene might be able to comment on. I mentioned some time back a Cornell University professor named Dave Collum, and he speaks on a lot of podcasts. He's pretty based in a healthy way, actually. He's a former gymnast. He's a judo guy. He's an economist. He's an organic chemist. But he offers a lot of discerning critique about power and politics, finances. He has been in a number of Zoom calls. He's openly talked about this. I'm not spilling secrets or anything. I have no relationship with him. I'm not a friend of his. But he often will volunteer information without broaching trust, right? Like you or I, he understands implicit privacy and secrecy, and not. I'm qualifying too much. I just want to couch this. But he has offered in public on podcasts that he has an acquaintance who began working in Washington in the realm of consulting and politics, and his friend was warned by an old timer in Hollywood. I'm sorry, in Washington, that don't accept invitations to private parties. He says it doesn't matter who it is. It could be the vice president himself. I believe that's what he said. Don't go to any private parties like that, because you don't know what's going to happen. You could wake up in a bed, right, with a kid beside you, and realize now you've essentially been patched into an organization that you didn't want to become a part of, because they've got you by the short hairs now. And I'm wondering if that sounds extremely far-fetched to Gene or not, given his own friend circles, professional circles, when he can comment.
Yeah, thanks. And sorry for dropping out earlier. We had a multi-alarm smoke thing going on here. I think we're over the worst of it. Yeah, I mean, I would say that's more of a dramatized version, but the idea of, again, putting people in circumstances that they might not otherwise want to be in, and then having that leveraged is, common practice. And, I can give an example from my own world. In, again, the oil and gas / intel community overseas in a former Soviet Union, there was a woman who I knew was a sparrow. She was a Russian asset. We were out at out at a restaurant, sort of the common place all the expats went to. And I was constantly trying to find a business reason to get rid of her. She was a translator for some Brits and the Brits as well. So it was one evening I was having dinner with the president of the oil company. I see her with a guy who I know is tied to the Russian mafia out of St. Petersburg. And over the course of the evening, she walked up to me as I was going to the bathroom, and she said, "Oh, I'm here with a friend. He'd love to meet the president of the company. Can I bring him over for an introduction?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, absolutely." So after I get back to the table, she brings the guy over a few minutes later. And, introductions are made. He makes his pitch for whatever oil thing it is that he's doing and got his hands in, and business cards are exchanged and all the rest. So then, they go off, and I lean right over to the president. I was like, "Do you know who she just brought over?" And I explained to him, and I'm like, "Oh my God, that is they're putting you in a compromising situation. We've got to do something about this. I think you need to, tell them you need to see the lists of all of their sources and assets that they're running," which I knew they weren't going to do. And that's exactly what he did. He's like, "Hey, I want to know who all these people are that you're dealing with. I want a complete list. You got 48 hours. They said no, and they were all fired. And off they went, and off went 6 of my problems.
That's interesting. And
So it
I'm
can be as
curious about
simple as that.
the Russian mafia. How many ethnic groups have their own concern in that, I guess, ecosystem of organized criminal activity? I hear, of course, that. Well, anyway, I'll just. How many different major players are there, and do they primarily discriminate based on their ethnic ties?
Yeah, for as many of those ethnic ties as there are elements, and then, different degrees of partnerships and whatnot. I mean, you just look at any nation and then break down the ethnic groups, and there is a organized crime faction.
In Russia, then is it one or two, or is it 5 or 6? Like, what are the broad numbers like? You don't have to identify them, but I'm more curious about how many people are sitting at the table, as it were.
I mean, I can't say, I don't have the numbers. I don't know, but I would just say look at anything that we know about, like the U.S. the structures in the U.S. Right, the 5 families and the commission, and then under those, everything falls out. It's the same structure.
In the
They would still be operating under, the approval of a larger organization, a larger, more powerful group.
and that ultimately, I imagine, goes right up to the security services of the state itself, because that is in their interest, right? If they can't dominate that world when they need to, they're failing at their fundamental purpose. I heard the alarms in the background.
Yeah, yeah, fundamentally correct. Yeah, my give me a minute. My hands are tied up, so move on.
Cheers.
Come on, Gene. If you can't fight fires simultaneously while drinking coffee, smoking cigars, and communicating with us, come on.
I know it's, I think it like got into the rafters because there's like one main alarm that as soon as you take attention off of it, so I get a fan trying to suck it out. This is like the first time that's been that extreme.
I'm just busting your chops. Just do it. Do what you got to do. I get it.
Eric, a question for you. I myself consider the 1963 assassination of John F. Kennedy to have actually been a coup. Um, do you yourself have a sympathy for that framing, or know anyone who
Absolutely.
does have
I
sympathy?
agree with you.
Okay. Did we ever find out for sure who did it? No. Was it?
It's as far as to the term for sure, I would agree no. But this is where I recommend people pay attention to dark journalist Daniel List. Um, I believe he's hot on the trail, and in the general sense of the term, it would be like the aerospace industry.
Ah, yes. I recall some recent spaces about that. That's and even if they weren't acting alone, they're a major stakeholder, let's say, in the venture. It must have been a multi-headed venture. But I'm wondering also then, we have the Vietnam War, we have the decoupling of the dollar from the gold standard, and just slowly, MK Ultra, right, Mockingbird. Was there a memo ever put out or an official communication ever made that we've investigated ourselves, we've identified the culprits, they're out, and you can trust your government again, right? Who is our enemy, right? Once the United States was essentially couped in 1963, who is the enemy? If we're going to know our enemy, who is it?
I guess if we're to try to put it back in that time period and move forwards, I would say it's probably a bit challenging now, but the break, I would say, at the time was the CIA and the factions that they were integrated with, and those families, that type of stuff.
So men and women, of course, with their own dynastic goals, who have access to the power of the state and who continually gaslight us about their fiduciary duty, right, to serve the voting citizenry. They gaslight us, so they do to us under the cover of doing for us. And I would suspect, from a systems point of view, that is our enemy, right? This breakaway
Yeah,
civilization you mentioned. This
I gather there was unfortunate infiltration post World War II from people that we could, at the very least, um, use the term Nazi affiliated, if not worse, that infiltrated the United States and rooted into factions and families and institutions, and began to play the long game. And then in 63, Kennedy was attempting to undermine their efforts. And then when we look at the players in the parties, this is, I mean, I'm trying to do my best to be concise, but there is research that's available that illustrates the accusation that I'm throwing out there. It's just, it's very complex. This brings us back into, where was JFK going the day that he got shot? He was going to speak to Lloyd Berkner. What's Lloyd Berkner's history? What's his associations? What sciences was he involved with? What science facilities was he involved with?
That makes me think of Jeffrey Epstein's science connections and his science work, which is far more alarming um, than the other atrocities he was involved in committing relating to human trafficking and corruption of individuals. So what you're describing is almost authoritarians, and what I would loosely call cultists. given all these symbolic communication and messaging and humiliation rituals and other things going on. And the cultists, when I say cultist, I just mean a high control group, right? It doesn't necessarily mean like robes and babies and Hollywood nonsense like that. But the elitists, right? You can identify them very easily, right? They're an elitist. Everyone knows what that is. It's kind of on their sleeve. An authoritarian, despite the gaslighting, same thing. But the cultists, right? The selective societies, right? The high control groups. That's the third faction. Right? That's the third leg. Maybe the weakest sometimes, until, Eric, as you just mentioned, they can infiltrate the other two. Right? We know about people in their religious devotions, and a high control group can be a substitute for a theology-based or spirituality-based religion. So think, is that elitist? Is that authoritarian? Or is that culty? Or is it all three?
All three.
So we now have a very gross set of three, DNA bits to identify our enemy: elitists, cultists, and authoritarians. The fourth category, I'll leave to someone else to identify. If we're going to
Yeah, this is one of the main reasons why I always suggest to people that they don't try to reduce all of the woes of the world to like one group or one person. Is that there's there's many factions that are associated on one level, but at each other's throats on another level. I mean, similar to when we see, the politics of nation states. It's just happening at a level that's above that.
So they evolve as well, and they kind of propagate their conceptual is childlike thinking.
I would imagine in my brain that if there were multiple factions colluding for this level of control over long periods of time, that they would, through agreement, take turns. Your faction for this period of time will be the scapegoat faction. We will blame everything on your faction. You will accept that for that time period. That's part of how this works. We all know it. Ha, 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 ha. And then, we'll switch it up when the time is right, because we all know that's how it works. This is not that activity is going on.
You know something, Eric? I was posting about that kind of idea back in August of 2024. It's something that a few people I talked to at that time and have some touch with still commented to me on. But we kind of developed the idea together. Of course, we didn't invent anything. We just rediscovered something that other people have known.
Yeah, these are the games that have been being played by the factions for a very long time, and they're operating on different timetables and time scales. So it's an activity that's more obvious to those that aren't focused on paying their mortgage every month, and the short-sightedness that the others have to function from, that are thinking month to month, don't necessarily pay attention to, say, a 50-year cycle of changing out of the scapegoat brigade.
I likened it to something called autotomy, which is when a life form, typically lizards we see, can detach a part of their body so that whatever predator happened to catch them can numb on that while they get away. So similarly, these organizations, right, once they are embedded in a deeper structure, they will cultivate essentially disposable assets that don't know they're disposable assets in order to serve that very purpose you suggested. And if we take any kind of mafia movie to be kind of allegorically true or to be some kind of greater description of human power dynamics, we can accept that, you know, a multi-generational period of humiliation may be the price extracted in a deal, or to you know, keep your head on your shoulders, so to speak, in that dimension. In this case, humiliation is an extremely dangerous indulgence, because a humiliated enemy has every reason to consider vengeance superior to the cold and remote, it's just business point of view, right? The person who does the humiliation is actually breaking that code first, and they're engaged in raw dominance display. And if you're a man, you know, you understand the immediate reflex that triggers in you for vengeance and a permanent end to that person.
Yeah, this is one of the big issues with, you know, we keep throwing around like this idea of, you know, breakaway civilization, but I think of it as in the context that we're discussing, simply just that there's like aspects of society that are living in a different world than the rest of us. As much as that might seem peculiar, it truly is going on. As much as, you know, they're theoretically in the same world, community, neighborhood, grocery, like it's not the same. It's very different.
I think of that as, what kind are you? Like that movie, like what kind of American are you, with the guy with the rifle? Yeah, sure, you're American, but what kind of American are you? In this case, it's not simply having a peer or a competitor, but what kind of peer or competitor, right? This is essentially the Russian nesting doll syndrome of an in-group within an in-group within an in-group. And there's selection pressure for those people.
It's the sum result of, I mean, eons of effort to have these people be in this distinctly different world. So it makes it hard to express to folks that this idea, or to folks where this idea may be very new to them.
Question, Eric, do you know anyone who is a vegan or vegetarian, like a long-term committed vegan or vegetarian, and has health issues, or whose children are perhaps less robust than they could otherwise be had they been feeding, you know, eating a proper diet of balanced diet of protein, especially meat and milk and cheese? And have you ever seen those kind of differences in people's physiology?
I would say I've heard of it and have limited purview, but I don't know anybody, so to say.
Do you not essentially vegetarian, but meat was not eaten as often, right? A lot more seafood rather than red meat, very little dairy, much kind of healthier Mediterranean style diet, but even less meat, right? For the context. The Koreans, they started chowing down on meat and protein really fast after the World War II kind of liberation. And you'll notice that the second and third and even fourth generation Koreans, some of those men are fucking tall, right? They're big, they're strong, coupled with mandatory military service. You'll find a marked difference. And you'll also notice some of those differences with the Chinese. The northern Chinese tend to be a little more robust and large in the frame because of cold weather and reliance on high protein. A lot of grain eaters or more herbivore oriented eaters, right, have slightly smaller bodies, smaller statures, maybe longer statures, maybe longer lifespan overall, also slightly related to body size. But my point is, which of those two groups of people do you think will produce robust, high testosterone, spirited men in order to defend kith and kin? The meat eaters.
Exactly.
Which societies early on, right, formed cities, right? The turn to agriculture, right? A diminishing of the population in terms of independence from logistic structures, right? Less spirited, um, less spirited men, more reliant or dependent men, right? On a grain-based system of calories. Ultimately, what we all need to survive, right? The ultimate asset, right? In that sense, access to energy, the energy to live, right? And then you harvest from that energy to live, the energy of that living thing's output, and then you begin trading in that. So you have a perfect structure in a city, right? For bureaucrats then to rise with access to ways of counting, ways of apportioning up fields, counting grain, taxing grain, right? I make that point because you described eons of cultivation to rise to those levels of power. Think as far back as the oldest cities we know about, and then scratch that thought and go even further back to the time of Göbekli Tepe, right? 15,000 years ago, roughly. And it's at least that old, if not older.
Yep. It just makes me think in my head, has there ever been a massive bodybuilder that was like, yeah, I'm a vegan?
I think only if there's gluten-free juice, right? And I mean steroids. That's probably about it.
Yeah, right. Like, yeah, I mean, non-chemically induced bodybuilder that's a vegan. Like, is that even possible?
I doubt it. And some of the strongest people I've ever seen in life are farmers, men with strong hands, strong forearms, right? Proportioned upper body strength. Um, Good luck, right? And if they're an older man, they got that
Oh,
old man strength.
I used to joke around about that when I was a kid. I would go work in the dairy farms up in the Catskills, with some regularity. But I remember being like a full blown adult in my 20s, and there's some 16-year-old farm kid that's just chalking hay bales like there's no tomorrow, and you're like, damn kid, like holy cow, yeah, don't mess with farm kids.
And guess where they were sent in World War One? And then those who came back and managed to have children, guess where they were sent in World War II? And then after that, guess where they were sent during the Vietnam War? Korea was kind of a lull in between, right, with overlap. But where was that stock sent?
I'm assuming the front lines.
Yeah. And then with the introduction of the birth control pill, what happened to the existing males around those women with, chemically induced pregnancy going on and on, shedding estrogen into the air? So those who came back, even after the 2 or 3 winnowings, were now subject to a stealth campaign of feminization through essentially chemical hormone warfare. Sounds crazy, but you can very easily use what I just said to fact check a chain of evidence. Look into it. Anyone listening, look into that.
Copy that. Actually, I apologize. I'm getting some messages that I should probably attend to. I have some things that I have to do this afternoon, and it looks like I may need to get engaged with those activities sooner than anticipated. But as usual, I appreciate the communication here. And thank you, Wolf. I see you down there, Daz. Good morning, sir. Thank you, Par, and everybody that jumped in. If you're here and you're following along in this space, if you could please give me a like and a follow on the platform. Maybe leave some comments or repost some of my stuff. Those are great algorithm fighting strategies. And I would thank you in advance if you can throw some of that energy in my direction. And with that being said, everybody have an excellent day. Be well, and I'll catch you all on the flip side. Enjoy.